A good Erev Shabbos. Our Sedra for this week, Parshas Haazinu, is a stunningly poetic and very special Parsha. I want to invite you to think of a Hebrew letter. Think of a Hebrew letter that's the smallest one you can think of. Okay, are you thinking of a small Hebrew letter? Okay, now think of the Hebrew letter Yud. Okay, now think of a letter smaller than that. Hard to do? Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's in our Torah portion this week, Parshas Haazinu, chapter 32, verse 18 of Chumash Devarim of the book of Deuteronomy. Haazinu is Moshe Rabbeinu's last segment of his last speech before his life comes to a close. And it's a poem, which they say contains the entirety of Jewish history. As you go over the portion this week with the notes, let your mind embrace what these words could mean for Jews in the past, as well as the future, and most importantly, for us today, here. Okay, back to the challenge. Did you think of a small letter, even smaller than a yud? There's argument about this, discussion, as there always is, but the consensus seems to be that there are some 17 letters in the Torah, 1-7, not a whole lot, 17 letters in the Torah which are written in a different size than the rest of the text. 11 larger than normal, and 6 smaller than the other. Oisios rabati, big letters, is the style of, for example, the very first letter in the Torah, which we'll see in 2 weeks. You have to watch for it when we lift up the Torah. Shabbat Bereshit, Shabbos Bereshis, the new beginning of the Torah, after Simchas Torah. The first letter of the first word in Bereshis is a larger bet than the others. The technicians call that a majuscule, means big letter. In Parshas Haazinu, there's an anomaly in the text in chapter 32, verse 18. If you still have your Chumash in front of you, you can take a look. On page 1104, this is the stone Chumash, on the Hebrew side, on the 5th line down, there's a Yud Ches, that's for verse 18, and to the right of that, there's an asterisk. That's not for home runs. It's to catch your attention and draw it to the words Yud Ze'ira, small Yud. The small Yud is at the very end of the line. You see there's a blank space, and the verse starts, Tsur Yeladecha Teshi. The last letter in the last word, Teshi, is a small Yud with an asterisk to show you to look in the right-hand margin to see what's going on. A letter written smaller than normal is called a minuscule in the technical jargon. This Yud is written smaller than any other Yud in the entire Torah. Now, the deeper meaning is not there. For some reason, Art Scroll chose not to print it in the commentary. But we know whenever you have, look, you're supposed to find meaning in every word, every letter of the Torah. But when you have one of these rare examples, we said there's only 17 outsized or undersized letters, majuscules and minuscules in the Torah. We're supposed to take special notice and learn something from this anomaly. The English translation on the facing page, page 1105 for verse 18, is you ignored the rock who gave birth to you. And the capitalized W in who, and the capitalized R gives you, and rock gives you a sense of who we're talking about. And the rest of the verse is translated, and forgot God who brought you forth, in case we missed the point. Sur yeladecha teshi, batishkach kel mechololek. The word teshi means forgot or ignored. You ignored the rock who gave birth to you. According to Onkelos, that's the translation into Aramaic that's in the far left hand of your Hebrew page there, and Rashi, teshi and tishkach are actually synonyms. They both mean to forget, to ignore, to fail to pay heed or attention to something. The root of teshi for the Hebrew grammar fans would be nasha, which is one of those 3-letter Hebrew roots that loses the nun at the beginning as you conjugate it. And the yud sometimes stands in for a hey, as happens in a place in Jeremiah for one example. So teshi here seems to be a variant of tinshe, you will forget. But when this happens, and this is a highly technical point, there's usually a dagesh, which means a doubling or a dot in the shin to indicate that a nun has dropped out. But it's not here. Why not? Haazinu, as we said, represents Moshe Rabbeinu's last message to us, the conclusion of the conclusion of the conclusion. Moshe has done his best to get God's message to us, get it up on our radar screen, the entire Torah from books 1 through 4, telling us our story, and then Deuteronomy, the whole Chumash Devarim, the fifth of the 5 books, which repeats and summarizes what went before. And finally, on this last day of his life, Moshe bursts out in song. That's what Haazinu is. It's a song, a shira. It's actually written differently in the Torah. You'll see it when we lift up the scroll and show the Shabbos. It's the only other one in the Torah besides Shirat Hayam. Shiras Hayam, the song at the sea. We sang in Thanksgiving when the sea split for us. Songs are easy to remember. Songs are catchy. People teach their children using songs. So Moshe tries with this song of Haazinu to teach us what we'll need to know on our long journey as a nation. One of the main points is in this verse we're examining. Don't forget how you got here, and don't forget who got you here. Maybe this verse we're scrutinizing wants to tell us this. When Bnei Yisrael sin, I know it's right after Yom Kippur, we should be done talking about sin, right? Well, sort of, but we're on a new and higher level now as a result of having gone through this wonderful Yom Kippur. And now more is expected of us. So talking about sin, when the Jewish people sin, we put a barrier, so to say, to the blessings God is sending us. Of course, nothing can stop God from doing anything, but if God sends rain and we open an umbrella, that stops the rain from getting us wet, right? Now imagine that it's raining blessings and I'm carrying an umbrella. Then what happens? So in some sense, at some level, our conduct can cause, let's say, a blockage in the blessings reaching us. This is a person has supposed to have good health. If a person smokes cigarettes or drinks to excess or something like that, isn't that going to stop the blessings of health reaching them? This whole idea is suggested in the omission of the nun at the beginning, and also the omission of the dagesh, the technical grammar points that we said that indicate its absence, which allows teshi to be possibly a form of natash as well. The yud is related to yad, the hand. According to Midrash Rabbi Akiva, it's also written small. So we could read it as tash yad. You weaken the hand, meaning the hand of Hashem. I personally am not so fond of taking away Hashem's powers. Excuse me. So this is not my preferred explanation. I'd rather look at it as there's a supply chain issue. There's a delivery problem. The Dubno Maggid explains in the form of a parable. He says once there was a person who owed money to a whole lot of people. There he had a friend who happened to be one of his creditors. He said, you know what you should do? Plead insanity. Pretend to be out of your mind. So the friend did this to everyone and it bought him a little bit of time. But when the friend who advised him to play this trick showed up and the man pretended he was crazy, the advisor said, come on, who are you fooling? This was my idea, remember? I know what you're up to. He says, Dubno Maggid says, this is how it is with us. God gave us all our abilities and powers and talents, including shikha, the ability to forget. We're able to forget difficult times and move on thanks to this tool in our toolkit. We can sort of bracket things or put them to the side, put them up on the shelf in our mental garage. Moshe is saying, in the Katzker's interpretation of the Dubno Maggid, God also gave us this gift, the ability to forget tribulations. The problem is, Vatishkach kel, we use that power of forgetness to forget God also, who's the source of all our being. Not so wise. But we do have free will, which means the freedom to misuse our abilities. So God says to us, come on, you're going to forget me? Who gave you the power, the ability to forget in the first place? Or Chaim HaKadosh notes that Teshi, the word with the small yud, and it might be understood in connection with a Gemara in Sanhedrin, that at the time God was about to create man, he consulted with the angels about this project, this idea. Some angels were very strongly in opposition to creating man. God not only ignored those angels and created us, that's what we're here for, but he punished the angels who were against the creation of humankind. Whenever the Jewish people sin, this weakens God's argument in favor of having created man. The angels can say, see, told you so. This is what Moshe meant when he said, Yiladecha Teshi. You weaken the one who begot you, according to the Or HaChaim. It says, you're weakening God's argument to say, they'll be good, they'll listen to what I say. Yakedis Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak Arama from Spain in the 1400s, mentions in his commentary on this verse 5 wings 5 domains. It's based on a verse in Psalm 36. 5 areas of human endeavor to which Jewish people turn when we feel God is not with us for some reason, or when we close God out of our lives. These are the wings of earth, meaning natural laws and sciences, the wings of the sun, astrology, trying to find out what your fortune will be from fortune cookies or the horoscopes page in the newspaper, the wings of angels, cherubs, keruvim, believing we get our guidance from spirits, whatever that might mean, the wings of seraphim, another kind of angel, the physics of the universe that brings about the orbits of the planets, and finally, the wings of morning, kanfei shachar, like Psalm 139 mentions. The forces of the day, whatever is happening today, the spirit of the times. Obviously, all of these has some kind of analog in the observable universe. The mistake is, as with all idolatry, to imagine that these are independent powers that operate all on their own without God. We're sort of worshiping the messenger and forgetting the original dispatcher of the message. Rav Hirsch, Samson Raphael Hirsch, brings all this to bear on contemporary history. Although he's writing in Germany in the mid 1800s, it's the quote unquote modern age, and he wants his message to apply to Jewish history going into the future also. Rav Hirsch says that the forgetting God when he was giving birth to us suggests that we, the Jewish people, are in the process of becoming an independent nation. But we forget God right in the middle of that process. It happened with the golden calf. It happened at many points throughout Jewish history. And this error continues even to our days, our times. We haven't even arrived yet where we're headed. And we're already ready to let go and discontinue, cancel our subscription, let go of our relationship with God, thinking that something ahead might be better. It's a mistake then, as it's a mistake now, but that's part of who we are. In this smallest of small letters, this smallest of all in the Torah, this little Yud Ze'ira, might be a reminder of one of the biggest problems, the biggest challenges of the Jewish people. We will and we have looked to so many other sources of help, so many other sources of salvation, so many false gods and false messiahs over the ages. We could take an afternoon and we could make a list of them all, and we'd need more time and more paper to list all the schemes and the scams that the Jewish people have fallen for, or even invented ourselves out of boredom or whatever. Why not go with the real thing? Why not stick with the tried and true? In so many different ways, this beautiful and moving and uplifting Parsha is telling us what the rest of Torah and really our whole experience of Jewish history is telling us. Each generation thinks it has a solution that's better than Yiddishkeit, better than real Judaism, real Torah, real God. Each generation is wrong. Some are wrong in new and inventive and creative ways. Some don't even rise to that level. They make the exact same mistake earlier generations already made. No chidushim, nothing new. Let's learn from that. And let's hope that in this new year, with a wonderful and uplifting and transformative and inspiring high holiday season that we're having at KST, we are inspired to new levels of dedication and faith in the rock that gave us birth, God who brought us forth. It seems like a huge challenge, but really it comes from the smallest of the small, the pintele yid, the tiny spark of godliness in our souls, which you can't even measure. Smaller than a yud. Smaller than a yud is that yid. Even smaller than the smallest yud is a yid, a Jew, the essence of who we are. Chayenu v'orech yamenu, our life and the length of our days, our unbreakable and eternal connection to our Creator, Avinu Malkeinu, as we just sang so movingly so many times in recent days. May we all take inspiration to receive all the blessings of good health and happiness and growth that are surely coming our way in the new year. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, a good Yom Tov.